Good afternoon. My name is Donna Marie Collins. I'm the hearing examiner that will be presiding over this afternoon's hearing. This is a rezoning request to the CFPD district. All testimony and evidence that I accept must be taken under oath. I will administer the oath to everyone in the room at one time. I see there's no members of the public. Is that correct? Okay, so then I will truncate my normal introduction and administer the oath, and we will begin with the applicant's presentation. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony and evidence you place into the record will be the truth?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm ready.
All right. Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to present the rezoning request before you today. I have exhibits to provide you.
Would you please state your name for the record?
Christine Fisher
Okay.
with Johnson Engineering. I have 2 copies. Do you want 2 or just 1?
One is sufficient for me.
Thank you.
And what do we have here?
All right. So this provides you with our PowerPoint, my resume, 11 by 17 of the master concept plan, and 2 special exception approvals that were previously approved for the site.
Okay. You may begin.
All right, thank you. So I am Christine Fisher, Principal Planner at Johnson Engineering, an Apex company. I have previously been qualified as an expert witness by Lee County Hearing Examiner and have provided an updated resume as part of the package. With me today representing the applicant is from Florida Governmental Utility Authority is John Carlson. He's the Capital Program Manager, and Mike Courier, who is the South Region Area Manager. And they'll be able to address any questions you may have about the organization or organizational plans. So today's request, the applicant is requesting a zoning change from RM2 to Community Facilities Plan Development to convert an existing potable water booster station to a water treatment plant. This use is permitted in the Land Development Code as existing only in the district. So in order to expand that use, they have to rezone it to a plan development. There is one deviation that we are requesting with this regarding entrance gates, and I'll discuss that later in the presentation. Staff has recommended approval, and the applicant has no issues with the staff report. There's just a little bit of background on the applicant. The Florida Governmental Utility Authority is a special taxing district. It was formed in 1999. And its purpose is to acquire, own, and improve and operate water and wastewater utilities. There are currently over 120,000 customers throughout 98 systems in 14 Florida counties. Lehigh Acres is one of those service districts. It's about 95 square miles with a total of 14,000 water customers and basically services about 50% of the area. Water treatment plant number 1, which is at 305 Coolidge Avenue, is the only water supply source at this time. And the subject site at 913 Bolivia Drive would be water treatment plant number 2, and that serves currently as a booster station and water storage facility. Over the last decade, Lee County has grown significantly, and now the FGUA must expand its water supply system to meet the current needs and future 20-year demands. In addition, there's water system reliability and resiliency issues that need to be addressed with the existing water facilities. This is the property. It is at 813 Bolivia Drive. It's just under 10 acres, located at the western terminus of Bolivia Drive, about 3 miles north of State Road 82 in the southeast section of Lehigh Acres Planning Community near the Lee County and Henry County border. It is currently zoned residential multifamily 2, and you can see all around it is RS1 on all sides. Let's That's the current zoning, and this is the current future land use map designation. It's within urban community, surrounded by urban community on all sides, except on the northwest where it is central urban. As I mentioned, the subject property is currently being used as a water storage and booster pump station. To the north and west are 150-foot canals, the Ibis Canal and the Sand Hill Canal. And then to the east and south are vacant lots with a few single-family homes on them. A little bit of history on the site. The site was originally purchased in 2002 by Florida Water Services Corp. In 2003, a special exception was approved to allow for Essential Service Facilities Group 2 in the RM2, and conditions were attached to that approval. You can see what those are there. It was for a special exception for the water treatment plant only, had to be developed according to the site plan. There's a buffer that was required, a 30-foot wide buffer on the north and the west, and that's a type F landscape buffer. A 25-foot wide type E buffer on both the south and the east, which is abutting the residential. They were to preserve the existing native trees that are outside those impact areas, remove exotics, and maintain them. No structure other than walls could be located within 100 feet of the boundary, and that excludes the wells. All structures had to be painted neutral colors, and then some lighting standards, and if the use was discontinued for more than 5 years, then the special exception would become void. So with that, next page, FGUA purchased the lot in 2003 and was issued a DO to drill 3 shallow upper sandstone aquifer wells. Between 2006 and 2008, permitting and construction began for the water treatment plant. In 2008, they had some water quality issues and sought a special exception to include a deep injection well to improve the water quality, along with a variance to allow that deep injection well within 50 feet of the perimeter of the property instead of the required 100 feet. Again, there are conditions associated with this, complying with the existing special exception approval, developing according to the site plan, going through the deep injection well permitting process, slash pines, if any were impacted, had to be addressed. And so at that point in 2013 then, that deep injection well was not constructed, and due to financial constraints, the site was converted to a water booster station and water storage facility. So that then brings us to current needs. So now they've done, the FGUA has done a needs analysis for the water system, and based on population and water demand projections, it justifies an expansion of an improvement of the existing water treatment storage facility. Their water master plan seeks to reestablish the water treatment plant number 2 as a reverse osmosis system with a deep injection well and monitoring well, add administrative offices, infrastructure, piping, raw water wells, and then they received some money for that expansion from the state. Then in March of 2023, a pre-app meeting was held with county staff to discuss the proposed improvements, and that was, at that time it was determined that they needed to go through a rezoning to get that plan development designation, district designation to do the water treatment plant. One more thing. Well construction, the deep injection well has now been constructed actually, and that's due to concurrent rezoning and development orders that are allowed by land development code. So the deep injection well has been constructed, and they're going through testing and monitoring and inspections now. All right, so this is the master concept plan. There's a large version of it in your packet. The blue areas that I've highlighted are the existing areas of development, which include the booster pump station and all the equipment that had been vacated for that water treatment plant that was never fully established. The pink, that would be phase 2, or the short-term proposed improvement areas, which would include recommission of the water treatment plant, conversion to the reverse osmosis system, some new upper Floridian aquifer raw wells, which go deeper than the sandstone ones that are currently on site, and administrative offices. And then phase 3 includes longer-term improvements to increase water treatment and storage capacity up to between 8 and 10 million gallons per day. The key development standards, this slide kind of summarizes the key development standards regarding setbacks, landscape standards, tree preservation, lighting, and height. As you can see, these either meet Land Development Code standards or conditioned based on prior approvals, and there's no intent to abandon those. This shows the enhanced setbacks that are already established on the property and will still be maintained. There's a 50-foot setback requirement from residential for any underground disposal, and then a 100-foot setback for any above-ground equipment. Buffers. Yes?
What is underground disposal?
That would be the deep injection well, where the brine that's pulled out of the RO system would be put back into the underground levels of the earth.
I thought the deep injection well was in the northwest corner.
It is. That's the setback requirement from the code.
It's confusing because it's already set back.
It's already set back way more than, yeah, exactly. You could see it up on the top. It says new deep injection well at the top northwest corner there.
Is there going to be a second deep injection well?
No.
All right.
No, all the red indicates is what the code says today, and that we are complying with it. All right, so this indicates the type F buffers, the 30-foot type F buffers that are on the north and the west, and the type E, 25-foot at the south and the east. With this, a 8-foot wall was constructed on the south and the east sides of the property. On the north and the west is a 8-foot chain link security fence. And those areas, let me go back one more time. Those areas, those native trees are outside in those areas, and those exceed the requirements. And then lighting and maximum height of 35 feet. So the storage tanks are the tallest structures on the site, and they're less than 35 feet. And the future storage tanks that would be proposed would also be that low profile, less than 35 feet as well. All right, so this is the deviation request. So as I mentioned, that existing 8-foot wall and entrance gate is located right there at the end of the terminus of Bolivia Drive. That was built before the code changed and has additional requirements. Here's what those requirements are. The code requires a 100-foot setback from the right-of-way. The existing gate is 20 feet from the right-of-way. The gate should be designed for a minimum of 5 vehicles stacking, and as you can see, that's not really possible. It also calls for right and left auxiliary lanes, which the Director of Development Services can waive or modify based on low traffic volumes, and then a turnaround for a single truck is also required on the ingress side of the gate. So you can see it's only 20 feet from the property line. This is the existing conditions. They're not looking to change anything now, so this would be a deviation request. So they're seeking to reduce that 100-foot minimum distance to 20 feet to kind of acknowledge what's already on the ground today and continue on. Eliminate that auxiliary lane provision based on low traffic volumes and eliminating the turnaround requirement. Right now, the only things that come in there are the people who have intention to come in there to either work inside the facility, equipment and such. And the justification, the existing site plan, the existing site design layout does not offer enough space to include these items now. And as the use generates minimal traffic and is at the terminus of Bolivia Drive, the requirements should not be needed. The staff report indicates that staff is in support of the deviation request. And then moving into LEED plan consistency. So we agree with staff's assessment on the applicable LEED plan objectives and policies, and I've highlighted a few of those here. The county's vision statement states that public facilities will be maintained at adequate levels of service, partly by the construction of new facilities and partly by the use of new methods to conserve the capacity of existing facilities. This rezoning effort supports the expansion of existing public facilities to maintain adequate levels of service. The land use category, that urban, community, public, and quasi-public uses are included in the list of predominant land uses for this category. It also calls for expanding and strengthening them accordingly. This rezoning promotes the expansion and strengthening of public services. Policy 2.13 establishes that public utilities and facilities are allowed in all land use categories when it's consistent with the GOPs and the applicable land development regulations. And the rezoning is consistent with Policy 5.15 as the conditions that are attached to the site previously through the special exception approval ensure compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. Moving into objective 7.1, because of the nature of the type of use that this is, it would be classified or considered industrial. The proposed improvements will comply with local, state, and federal air, water, and noise pollution standards. And although it is located next to residential development, neither the existing facility nor the proposed improvements are anticipated to generate noise levels incompatible with residential development, nor will any bulk storage or production of toxic, explosive, or hazardous materials be near residential areas. All permitting will be done in accordance with South Florida Water Management District and Lee County Development Services and would be consistent with good engineering practices, adopted environmental criteria standards, and relevant policies of the Lee Plan. As mentioned, the site abuts residential to the east and the south, separated from residential on the west and the north by that 150-foot canal right away. And conditions are there to protect and minimize impacts to the neighborhood. Regarding objective 17.3, the property is located within the Lehigh Acres Planning Community. We did do a community information meeting with the Lehigh Acres Architectural Planning and Zoning Review Board. That was held on May 23rd of this year at 601 East County Lane in Lehigh Acres. And this is in accordance with that objective 17.3 as well as Land Development Code section 33.1401. Moving on to the objectives there and policies, all under 25. These policies prioritize Lee County's coordination with FGUA for the expansion of utilities, and this rezoning supports that effort. There is potable water provided on the site. There's no sewer service available, so the existing septic system will continue to be used and enhanced as needed with the improvements that are proposed on site. And then goals and objectives under 125, ensure water quality is maintained, and this rezoning will do that as well.
So there's an on-site septic system right now?
Yes.
And is that to be upgraded?
It will be upgraded. Actually, the drain field will be moved, and then we're putting in a grinder pump. So, in order to accommodate the construction of the facilities.
Okay.
So, but it's very small use. It's really just a bathroom and maybe a little drainage, but that's the only.
Right, I just know there's been
no-
a lot of progress in on-site septic systems since the site was first developed, and I wanted to know what the plan was with regard to.
Do you have anybody working on site now on the facility? There's no administrative offices there now, yeah.
No, it's just
a
occasional,
facility.
the workers. There's a bathroom for the workers, basically.
Okay. So there is intent to put administrative offices there at some point in the future, and so they would have to enhance the system to be able to support employees that might be on site. All right, and so then we come to the zoning criteria. In summary, we have, as we've demonstrated, the proposed community facility plan development rezoning request will meet the criteria established in Land Development Code section 34-145 D4A for granting a rezoning, including complying with the Lee Plan and being served by existing urban services. The request meets or exceeds all performance and dimensional standards of the LDC and other applicable county regulations with the exception of the deviation, but promotes the intent of the code regarding protection of health, safety, general welfare of the public.
Is there a proposed limitation on the square footage of the administrative offices?
I don't believe that we put a limitation on the square footage of the office in the conditions.
Let's see, the property will continue to be accessed via Bolivia Drive and is demonstrated in the provided traffic impact statement that was part of the application package. The surrounding roadway network has sufficient capacity to handle traffic from the proposed development. The site is already developed, does not contain any environmentally critical areas. Proposed improvements will protect existing environmentally critical areas and natural resources. The site is served by urban services and will enhance the availability of urban services to the surrounding facility based on the type of use that it offers. And then the plan development findings, the next section, in addition to the proposed CFPD rezoning request meets the plan development findings criteria. The proposed permitted uses allow for the development of public facilities that provide necessary essential services to the surrounding community. It doesn't generate significant traffic, create adverse impacts regarding noise, lights, or odor, and is generally consistent with the surrounding area, particularly with the conditions that have been placed on it, with the wall and the landscaping and setbacks. As previously mentioned, those conditions were imposed on the site and would continue to be applicable to the site. The deviation enhances the achievement of the objectives of the PD and protects the public health, safety, and welfare. Public notice, I mentioned that we had that public information meeting. That information was available in the packet as well. Let's see, signs were set up. We put those up on September 16th in accordance with the administrative code sections. And I know that the county staff had mailed notices to the surrounding property owners. So in my expert opinion, the requested zoning change on the subject site from RM2 to community facilities plan development to allow the recommission of a water treatment facility and associated uses is appropriate in this location. It allows for the expansion of the public purpose use, supports the goals, objectives, and policies of the Lee plan, complies with the land development code criteria, and meets the applicable standards required under Chapter 33 regarding development within the Lehigh Acres planning community. The applicant and I are available to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. I don't have any questions at the moment. I'm ready for staff's presentation. Thank you. PowerPoint, paper PowerPoint will be staff exhibit 2.
For the record, Dirk Danley with Community Development. I've previously been accepted as an expert witness in the Lee County Land Development Code and like to do so again today.
Yes, please proceed.
Just to expand on the statement or the question you asked about with the office, we didn't initially think that that was necessary based on the fact that it's usually a very low populated facility. And in the past, you know, we keep running into the fact that there's only 2 or 3 staff members there at any point in time. I did pull up the trip generation from the TIS, and it does consider up to 13,000 square feet. So we do want to put in a condition about 13,000 square feet for administrative offices and other ancillary uses. I don't know if the applicant would be okay with that, but that's what the TIS.
Okay, that's what the
considers.
TIS is based on.
Yes.
Thank you.
The applicant's already gone through the request. This really is just a reignition of an existing water treatment plant, as the applicant stated, that didn't quite come to fruition to its full extent previously. The applicant's already gone through the location. I just wanted to put a side-by-side between what's there today versus what's being proposed. It's going to be 2 more tanks. The applicant already brought up the deep injection well. And just the discussion about the 50-foot, this was, I believe, a response to an insufficiency comment that came through the original, during the staff review to ensure that they were complying with 10-351 and all the conditions that are required there. And we'll go through some of those. The applicant's gone through those as well. But it does show the future locations for phase 1s, 2, and 3, and then the existing location of that gate. that they are seeking a deviation from. But aside from that, the footprint of the project itself isn't changing significantly, as most of the infrastructure is already in place, with the exception of some of these wells. The applicant has gone through the zoning history up to this point, but since 2013, this has been used as a water booster station and not as its own water treatment plant. And that's part of the reason why they weren't able to benefit from that existing only clause in the RM2 district that they were discussing, that has a defined set of dates, basically, that you have to be in existence. I don't think they would have met the original date. I believe it's 1989 or something, that you would be able to expand as a conforming use. But even with that, the special exception expired with inactivity for 5 years, I believe is what the applicant stated. So that's why they're having to go through this case today. The applicant has gone through the decision-making criteria, and we'll hit some of the high points through our presentation, but we do generally find that they're consistent with the decision-making criteria. This is in the urban community future land use category, between what's already characterized as an area that would support public and quasi-public facilities. Policy 2.1.3 also expands where these utilities can be located, and so we find them consistent with the future land use category. The proposed expansion and reinvigoration of this site is also there to facilitate objectives 2.1 and 2.2, allowing for additional urban services in the area that aren't currently available or not able to sufficiently address the growth in the area. Staff finds that this is consistent with policy 5.1.5 simply because most of the structures are already there. The development's already there. From the outside property owners adjacent to the property, there will be very minimal impacts other than, when they go through the development order process, having to bring some of that landscaping back into compliance if there is any non-compliant landscaping there today, plus a few additional structures on site. So we do find it consistent with policy 5.1.5. 25.9.3 of the Lehigh Acres Community Plan speaks to working with FGUA to provide priority areas for the expansion of utilities. While this is not necessarily creating a prioritization with this site, this is allowing for additional expansion in the area and additional capacity, and so we do find them consistent with this policy as well. Just speaking briefly on water quality, there is an existing water management plan already in place on the site. They will be utilizing much of that with their new reinvigoration of the site and expansion, and they will be required to comply with state requirements for water quality and quantity. And this is, once again, just a reiteration of more on that water quality, that they have to meet high standards for water quality in the area, and we do find the project will meet that. Just going back to 10.351, there are some additional requirements that the applicant was required to meet. They have met most of those. I did want to just bring up, one of the requirements was for odor or other impacts to health, safety, welfare. Fortunately, a water treatment plant doesn't generate the odor that a water reclamation facility would. And so this doesn't have the baggage like a wastewater treatment plant would typically have. But additionally, they do comply with the rest of these requirements. The applicant's already brought up the lines that kind of hash out the structure setbacks and, the structure setbacks here, and then that deep injection well line there away from residential areas. And then that one deviation, the applicant's already gone through, but it is an existing gate. The wall and the fences and the gates aren't proposed to change because all this has already been well established in the area, and we were in agreement that this did merit approval of a deviation just because the site is exactly as it is, and will, from an outside looking in, operate in the same way moving forward. And so we did recommend approval of the deviation for that. With that, we are recommending approval with the conditions in attachment C, and staff is here with any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any questions. I think this is a straightforward application. Thank you for the detailed presentation and staff report. And I'll be preparing a recommendation, and you can expect a final board hearing to follow. Thank you.
Thank you.